This is a little thing I found on the blog I mentioned before, A Time and a Place. Gosh, I wrote so many little things on there. I can't believe I don't do it anymore. I have another time and another place, a new blog, but nothing ever gets put on it. But I go back and read these, and my goodness, it's like reading about someone else. This is just a little blurb, a little thing that happened. These are true things. This is a very true thing that happened to me when I was a very young boy, and I'm going to read it to you. It's about, it says, remembering my friends. Um, I wrote here, I'm going over my journal. It's Jim's journal, the story of my life. In the journal at this time when I wrote this article, I was at age 24 on the journal. And I start remembering things, remembering my earliest and most eternal friends, remembering my guardian angel, the Tuolumne River and its trees. And it might sound a little strange, but when I look back over my life, growing up on the Tuolumne River and climbing the trees and having trees for friends, to me it isn't at all strange. It would be strange if this hadn't been the way that it really was in real life. I spent most of my time alone at the river. This is when I was a young child. The river was my friend, and I enjoyed it and my friend, the trees, with a capital T. After my mother got used to me going to the river and staying all hours, it became easier for her. I don't know if she began to believe that I actually had a guardian angel watching over me. Little asterisk in brackets, I did. I was between the ages of 8 and 11 when I spent most of my time at my friend the river and my friend the trees. Or she just got tired of fighting the losing battle with the river over me. We were in a poor neighborhood, an oaky neighborhood, where nobody had much of anything, and the people, the grown-ups, worked as hard as they could to barely eke out a living, and my mother had to work to support her family. Nobody knew what a babysitter was in those days. When my mother went to work, children stayed home, and if the older children weren't home, the younger children stayed home alone. And when the younger children, I stayed home alone, I did pretty well whatever I pleased, whatever I wanted to do. It wasn't always popular with my mother and my sisters because they thought it was dangerous. They were afraid I might drown or be killed in some way, but I was never afraid when I was with my friends, the river and the trees. Okay, and then I say I often went all the way up to the Houston Bridge, which was the upstream limit I had set for myself. And oddly enough, in all those years of growing up, I never went up the river farther than the Houston Bridge. I don't know what it was. Many times I would find a log and float the 4 or so miles down the river at a very leisurely pace, looking for mussels, those are freshwater clams, or just kick back and enjoying the feeling of buoyancy and the caress of the water on my body. My God, it was a wonderful experience. I found many places in the bank of the river, mainly the northern bank, where the tree roots came out over the water. There was one big oak tree that had extremely thick roots that reached way out over the water, about 6 or so feet. Water had washed away much of the dirt under the trees, and the roots showing were very strong and thick. The water at the back there under the tree was pretty deep, maybe 4 or 5 feet or so. I swam under the roots and I dug out a large hole in the bank, mostly under the roots, but partly downstream from the tree too. Now, I could swim under the roots and come up out of the water under the bank and breathe. A little cave. I had a little cave there, a little fort. I called it my fort, my underwater fort. I could put my feet on the bottom and stand straight up. I didn't tell anybody about my underwater fort. Every time I went up to the Houston Bridge and floated down, I'd stop and I'd go into the fort. It never once occurred to me that it might cave in. I was in there many times the summer that I made it. But that winter came and we had quite high water and flood. The river flooded way down, way up and onto the bank. So the next spring, when the weather got warm enough to swim, I went to the fort and I found it had caved in. The oak tree was all right. It's probably still standing there. Sometimes, like now, I remember my friends, the river, the oak tree, the fort, and my guardian angel, which actually, they're all one. What a wonderful life I had as a child. Would I like to go back? I I don't know. Maybe. Maybe, but if I went back, something might be different. So I guess I'll be content with the memories of my wonderful childhood uh, with my dear friends, the Tuolumne River, my underwater fort, and the wonderful trees that all cared for me and helped me grow up when I was young. This is JC. Thank you very much.